Morning guys, Wednesday the 30th of September. Completed a bit of my storage capacity, so hopefully it won't go off in the middle of it today. I was thinking actually, I was talking to one of the new managers at the college where I do some of the courses that I deliver, and she was sort of asking me about one of the things I thought I'd done really well, and I sort of said I felt one of the key things was getting my head around some of the online delivery, the tech side of things, and delivering a course online, which I felt I did reasonably well, and I think because I also said, obviously I don't see myself as the expert, so to speak, and that compared to others, I think I do need to keep, I'm not just skilling up in that area, but I just think, the way I perceive myself in that way is that with IT stuff, I just need that bit more time to get my head around what I'm needing to do and to go through it in quite a mechanical way. I don't think I'm one of those people that has grown up with that amazing capacity to just be able to, I suppose, switch your hand to a lot of it, and it all comes natural. But anyway, so she turned around and she was saying, actually, man, she says, I think you're almost doing yourself a disservice. She said, I think you didn't just deliver the course online and do it okay. She said you did absolutely brilliant, she says, and she goes, also, it was a high level ILM course, and that sort of got me thinking about the view we have of ourselves, and I think the old image and old perception and old story. So it feels like no matter how much I develop and expand, and I have people saying to me, wow man, look at how much you've been able to do that you didn't do before, and my videos and my YouTube channel and delivery, I still see myself as just probably, I'd say, just below average or something in relation to those sorts of skill sets and the ability to be able to get my head around the tech side of things. And I think it's the same, I think, when people have this image or perception of themselves, like Freddie Flintoff. I watched that, I thought that was really quite eye-opening actually, in terms of his sharing his experience on that programme last night about bulimia. But he talked about this perception of seeing himself as the fat kid, and then at one point the press and media picking up on the fact that he'd put on a few pounds, and they were really ribbing him for it, and how his perception of himself in terms of that fat kid really stuck. And that if you looked at him, particularly when he was driving himself really hard and trying to get cut, as he called it, and lose the weight, I mean my perception, it's interesting, isn't it, talking about perception, I actually thought at that point that he didn't look as good, and certainly at the end of the programme where he'd obviously lost, I think it was another stone, I just didn't think he looked as well, but it'd be alright me saying that, but unless the person's perception of themselves begins to change and how they view themselves, and that can become quite stuck. That view, that perception, that picture, that mental image. That's why, again, they talk about people who've been really quite big in size, and then over time they lose. And when I'm talking like, people who've lost stones, like significant amounts of weight, and yet there's this process they'll often talk about and go through, which is often when they visually see themselves, they look at themselves in the mirror, they're not seeing always what is literally in front of them now. They're still almost viewing themselves through the old lenses, the old perception, the old eyes. And I think it takes a long time to allow your new view, if you like, of yourself, the changing view of yourself, to catch up. It made me think about, I watched the brain surgeon between life and death programme. Just watched the second one in this new programme that's been on. If you haven't seen it, guys, it's worth watching. I just find that whole piece fascinating about what they can do and the brain and how it works, and how they're saying they're finding out, even in the last, literally we're talking the last, couple of years, they're finding more and more and more out. And a lot of actually what they're finding out, a lot of new stuff, is very different to what they originally thought. So, they're talking about how the brain isn't just sections in its own right, that they're sort of seeing more and more that they're all connected to each other in ways that perhaps they never really realised and appreciated before. And one of the reasons they were saying as well in the second programme, they were thinking about it in this way, was that a part of the brain that sort of affects speech with this woman they were operating on a tumour in her brain, was what they would perceive to be significantly far enough away from the actual tumour bit itself, which on paper it shouldn't really have an impact, but actually the closer they got to trying to get out the excess bit of the tumour, they actually began to see that it did start to affect her speech and her motor skills, particularly her ability to speak. Because obviously they have the whole brain area sort of numb, but with these two, there was actually two in the programme they actually do the surgery while the person's awake. Obviously they can't feel anything, but they're actually awake so that they can gauge their response to questions they're asking and touch, to see how close they may be getting to the, almost like, the dangerously close to the tumour, especially when they're trying to get out or clean as much of the surrounding air as possible. And interestingly, the guy was talking about, and he mentioned again this perception. He said a lot of people sort of think that, their personality, the way they are, the way they view themselves, is generally fairly static throughout their lives. But he was saying actually we change a lot more than perhaps what we realise, but we don't really see it because the change is so slow and gradual over a period of time. the way we view ourselves, our perceptions, the personality does change, and then they were talking about how when they've done the surgery, there is always a high risk that you never quite know how somebody's going to respond afterwards. You can gauge what you hope, and yeah, it was interesting, just watching the two people in particular, and seeing how they were, dealing with not only the change, but also the issues for themselves with being able to recall, and not so much recall. The one woman, she actually felt that she had the memory to be able to answer. But in the early stages of recovery, when she verbally tried to say it, because she knew it in her mind, she couldn't actually say it. And so, it's interesting the perceptions you have therefore then of yourself. And she was saying prior to the surgery, that she feels, she's relatively in control of herself, what she does, what she's about. But actually, it's quite frightening really to think that aspects of your brain perhaps have more impact than what you maybe realise or appreciate. And then trying to there was the other guy who had his surgery as well, that whole piece about trying to, what they call, reconnect, make new attachments and new connections with information so that you can begin to communicate again, effectively. But that takes time to remake. I'm probably saying, I'm not saying the right words here, do you know what I mean? But the connections and the attachments. So, yeah. The whole piece about perception and, perspective, how we perceive ourselves, and letting go sometimes of the old perceptions to be open to new views, new ways, is really vitally important, I think, for us to adapt and develop and grow. But at the same time, that's not always easy, I think, for human beings to do. So guys, that's my musings this Wednesday. So have a whizzy Wednesday, and I shall speak to you later, guys. Take care, bye.